So, Patrick, it's your turn to bring me something. What do we got?
Well, we have us Europeans, and I presume you of America. We're all on about Iceland at the moment.
Oh, and you've made the classic blunder that Leif Erikson generated. I think it's about Greenland.
Yes, there we go.
Well done. I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Yeah. The reason why I made that joke at the start is it probably landed badly, but is President Trump's speech where he kind of got them both confused. Not more than once, by the way. More than once.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So this looks like fronts.co. What we got here?
Yes.
All right. Let's let this man cook.
Well, that could have gone worse, right? I mean, at the moment, President Trump stood before the audience at Davos yesterday to begin his speech. There were fears that he might do something truly extreme. Announce the dissolution of NATO, maybe, or inform his audience that Delta Force was already en route to Greenland to kidnap the island's premier. Well, let me jest, but only a little bit, right? In truth, America's allies woke up yesterday morning expecting the worst. Instead, they got a speech that was still bad, but just not quite bad enough to precipitate a transatlantic meltdown. The headline moment was Trump ruling out force to annex Greenland. That an American president promising not to attack a treaty ally was seen as a good outcome shows you just how wild this timeline is already. But while the speech took military action off the table, with tariff threats dumped soon after, it didn't solve the deeper issue. For an entire week, the most powerful nation in NATO acted not like a steadfast ally, but like a bully. Trade deals were torn up with zero notice. Military action was threatened on a whim. Leaders of allied nations were belittled and publicly humiliated. For Trump supporters, that's just how he rolls, again and again.
So you think that was just too aggressive a stance, or what?
I think it's been happening for the last few weeks and months. That time and time again, he just keeps kicking his allies, and he's shocked every time they react back or stand up to him in any way. As I was saying to you when we're not recording,
right?
The way he's acting as a world leader is not how you should act in a lot of ways. He's pushing everyone around, trying to be the big man on the block, which is okay, you can do that for a while. But I don't think he quite understands that there's going to be massive cost at the end of this.
Right. So he's kind of like the bull in the china shop and damn the consequences.
Yeah, very much so. And not even and the sad thing is, with Trump, especially with Trump, he's not sharp enough to think 4 or 5 steps ahead, to realize this is going to have a massive knock-on effect in decades to come. If NATO suddenly gets disbanded in or by the sounds of it, the way other NATO allies are talking, that the US is just shipped out of NATO and other countries join into NATO, that the US will become a very isolated nation very quickly.
Right. So do you think the downfall of this is way worse than whatever his plan might be?
I think his plan is that America is the biggest player on the block, and damn the consequences. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Look what I've done in Venezuela. I could do the same to Greenland, but I don't feel like I want to. He has to remember, as big as America thinks it is, combined, other NATO members combined, altogether, have the same size military force if they stand together.
Well, I understand that. I don't think they have the appropriate expeditionary forces like the United States has to make the kinds of threats that
it's not in their. It's not in their. Yeah, but you have to remember, it's not in their wheelhouse to make threats like him.
Right.
Now,
makes sense.
The sad thing is, what I don't think he realizes is, this is not just that beginning of the end of NATO. It's the beginning of something different than NATO.
So you think the trade pacts and treaties and things that we have will also go down the drain, and then we'll be stuck isolation without appropriate trade?
I think the way that us Europeans are seeing it is, the US can never again to be too heavily reliant. We can't keep relying on the United States anymore.
Right, makes sense.
That's why you see
self-sufficiency would be good. Yeah, for sure.
Not only that, but make trade deals with like China, India, Pakistan, other countries.
Right.
But it looks like the main partner that the Europeans are going for is China at the moment, as well as India and so on.
Okay.
I think America's worst fears are going to come true from their own making, by the looks of it.
Makes sense. All right, here we go.
They've emphasized that we should take the president seriously, but not literally. Threats and brinkmanship are just a part of the art of the deal. But what may work in real estate cannot work in geopolitics. And while the Greenland crisis has been diffused for now, the last few days have been a catastrophe for the West, a catastrophe that may effectively spell the end of NATO. The impossible demand.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious statement, though, right?
Yeah. And you can even see with the Canadians, Australians, New Zealand, South Korea, and even Japan now. And the Europeans are talking about putting their own defense together, basically.
Right.
Get rid of
Outside
NATO and replace it with this. Yeah, no, let's get rid of NATO completely. Just disband it.
Right.
Put this new organization in place.
Okay. Yeah, that works
That's
out.
that's what they're going for. Even with Carney's speech over there, where he's urging other world leaders to come together, which they are listening to, is just move on without the United States.
Right. Here we go.
We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force. We would be, frankly, unstoppable, but I won't do that. With that, presumably unintentional quoting of Meatloaf, President Donald Trump triggered the unclenching of 1,000 sphincters. Just moments before, those assembled in the hall at Davos had been nervously wondering if the American leader was about to unleash a historic moment that would perhaps equal Japan's delegation storming out.
That feels like a threat, right? Like we would be unstoppable, but we're not going to do it. You know.
Yeah, but a lot of the stuff that was said in that speech outside of this open threat is the best word to describe it, is the fact he went around and insulted pretty much nearly every single world leader there.
Not good
During
form,
this
but
speech.
not good form. All right.
The fact that he kept getting Iceland and Greenland and all them mixed up at the same time probably wasn't a good look either. But it goes to show that something that Europe has been talking about for a long time is the US a good ally? And they've been talking about it for 10 plus years, even before President Trump's first term.
Yeah, 45. Okay.
Yeah, because the policies seem to flip flop all over the place. It's not a steady ship anymore.
Right.
It seems to be going all over the place.
Well, I think foreign policy is the de facto function of the president with the State Department. So
yeah,
that's where we're supposed to get those policies and things from. So
yes, and I think it probably worked, you could say, right up to Obama's time, and then from Obama's time afterwards, it was kind of all over the place. But
right.
like during Obama's time, it was more of a softy approach. Then you had Trump's first term and so on, and it seems to be just all over the place. As you say later on, he wakes up in the morning and he'll just come up with whatever crazy policy pops into his head. It's like you can't do, as you say, you can't do business with a guy like this.
Right. It feels a little too unsteady, right?
Oh, it's very unsteady. And the sad thing, as I've said before, he's just surrounded himself with not the sharpest tools in the box. There's a bunch of yes men that no one's going to tell him, wait a minute, this is not a good idea. Unfortunately.
Makes sense. All right, here we go.
The League of Nations in 1933. Instead, Trump did what he does best. He played his audience like a reality TV veteran, dropping his threat to use force at the peak moment of crisis, quoting, "Now everyone is saying, oh good, that's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. But I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force." For Europeans who'd been fearing a final rupture to the transatlantic relationship, it was a little like stepping up to the hangman's scaffold, only for the hangman to declare, "Psych!" But
Yeah, we're not going to hang you today, but we could.
Yeah, but
right.
We could have done that, and that's what it feels like. It feels like you do not know where you stand with this guy. And I know people who support Trump saying that's just the way he is. But even if they have to admit at this stage, 12 months, nearly 12 months over 12 months into his presidency, that he started off with a good run at it. But now you can see the cracks forming. That this guy is not firing on all cylinders. Even they have to admit it. Even a lot of MAGA supporters kind of realize, wait a minute, this guy is a bit off kilter here.
Going off the reservation a little bit. Yeah, I can feel it.
Well,
right.
Okay, I can. You can even feel in the atmosphere. Like, he started off great with immigration, all these other policies. Starts off fantastic, but now he's just completely gone off the reservation a tiny bit. And I think he might be.
You don't think there's an ulterior? Well, not an ulterior motive, but you don't think there's an effective plan in place behind it? You don't think that the policymakers are?
I think the plan in place is he's going to keep bullying until he gets what he wants. And that has worked for him in the past.
Right.
But I think when you're dealing with multiple different European nations, who are a lot of them do not like this.
Well,
They've dealt with it before.
Nobody would like
They've
it,
dealt
right?
with. You have to remember, in Europe, we've dealt with bully boys like this before.
A couple of times.
And yes, and everyone can see where this is going. If we appease Trump now, where does it end? That's what they're all saying in Europe. If we give him what he wants now, where does it stop?
Right. If we give him an inch, does he take the mile? That kind of deal.
And with guys like Trump, that's exactly what's going to happen. If you give him what he wants now, he'll come back for more and more and more until there's a line in the sand.
Sure.
But I don't think, to answer your question, is there a long-term policy in place? I don't think so, because not with the guys he's surrounded himself with, like the Kushner and so on. They're not sharp enough to think 15 steps ahead. They're not bright enough.
Stephen Miller's pretty damn good. So.
Yeah, but is he good enough to stand up and say no to Trump?
I don't know. If it's that wrong, and he is informed way better than we are based on where he is, I don't know. I can't make that call, right?
Yeah, I haven't said no to him
yet. I guess
yet.
I could invite Mr. Miller on, but odds are pretty low at this point that he's going to be like, "Oh yeah, the A&P gents, I know you guys. Yeah, I'll come on."
But you look at, even if you look at Miller's statements, he's not going to ever say no to Trump. Not a hope in the world. There's not one of them. I can guarantee there's not one of them around him at the moment is going to turn and say, "Wait a minute, Mr. President.
Hey, bud.
This is actually a bad idea."
Oh. See what more we have.
While the immediate reaction to Copenhagen and Brussels would have been one of relief, there was still a lot in yesterday's speech that caused disquiet. In its immediate aftermath, Greenlandic influencer Orla Jolson reposted official government instructions on preparing for an invasion. The Financial Times reported anxiety in Reykjavik after Trump appeared to get confused and suggested that the US wanted to annex Iceland. And economist, defense editor Shashank Joshi summed things up with a post on X declaring, "Speech was not as bad as expected, but not good. Despite taking force off the table, we still had demand for immediate negotiations on acquisition, menacing threat to remember if Europe said no, and repeated claim he wouldn't defend territory he doesn't own. Alarming for all allies." End quote. Now, because we live in the Biff timeline, this was seen as a win. But make no mistake, while Davos was spared the sight of Donald Trump going Vesuvius.
The Biff timeline, that's the Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure I caught the reference there.
Yeah. It's Back to the Future when they were making a joke of future presidents.
When he says we would not defend land that we don't own, that would be all of the European continent, right? As well as Iceland and Greenland, right?
But also, you have to remember, he doesn't own Israel either.
He does not, in fact, own Israel.
Does that mean, would he defend Israel?
No.
Even you have to remember, if you look at his words and what he said there, he will not defend anything that he does not own.
Might be different because they're considered, in quotes, a special ally. So I don't know if that means anything.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He says these things without thinking them too far ahead.
Okay, well, let's see what more we got.
Europe, this was not a normal moment in geopolitics. In fact, despite the president backing off from the use of force or tariffs over Greenland, this remains the gravest crisis in NATO history. For those just returning to the news after a misguided New Year's resolution to watch their blood pressure, a quick recap of where things stand. Since capturing Maduro on January the 3rd, remember that? It's already out of the news cycle. Trump has gone into overdrive, seemingly speedrunning all his plans before midterms later this year potentially render him a lame duck. The biggest of those plans, either buying or annexing Greenland and transferring ownership to the United States. Although no longer a part of the European Union, Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It's a highly autonomous part that polling shows aims to one day go fully independent.
So part of, I think, what he was saying is that Greenland's actually on the North American plate as far as plate tectonics go. So I think that was one of the things he was saying. Well, it's on the North American plate. What?
Yeah, so we technically kind of part of us already. Yeah, I've seen this statement, and you're sitting there kind of going, Canada is part technically. So does that mean Canada's technically part of the United States? Is Mexico still? You know.
Right, but I think this goes back to this is a Monroe Doctrine thing. This is Monroe Doctrine stuff.
It's not. I don't think he was even. By the way, I don't think Trump actually quite understands that either. But I think the sad thing is when Trump was making these statements, he had his vice president and his secretary of state and so on stand behind him while he's saying all these wild statements, and then his vice president stands up, Vance, and repeats what he just said, and you're sitting there kind of going, do these guys actually think before they speak in any shape, form, or fashion? Or is it just
Vance is a Yale-educated lawyer, like he was a senator, like one of the few times the senator's taken that position.
Yeah, and the sad thing is when Vance is asked basic world questions about the world outside of America, he's very limited. You could see him a mile away. He struggles even in interviews when he's asked basic questions about the European continent or the Middle East or so on. Even though he is highly educated, he
complimented the G-Shock socks at the White House. I'll have you know.
But what I'm trying to say is,
either way,
our T-Shock was over there.
Right.
And the sad thing is, he might be smart when it comes to the North American continent, say like the Canada, United States, Mexico, and so on. But when it goes outside that sphere of influence, he struggles quite a bit. And you can see it a mile away.
But I've seen him in interviews. He's really good at interviews, like normally speaking.
Yes, but those interviews are already pre-made. He already has the questions given to him before he even will agree to an interview.
Right.
But when he's caught on the cuff, as they say, he does struggle. But by the way, I'm not bashing just Vance or Trump. I'm talking about politicians in general in the United States, both in Democrats and the Republicans.
Right.
When they're asked basic questions outside of North America, they struggle because it's not in their wheelhouse.
Right. We have a problem with our state representatives and senators and the like here. So I get it. So, all right, let's get back to this thing.
But also a part that for now remains under the protection not just of Copenhagen, but also of NATO. That means Trump's hints of using military or economic force against Greenland have raised the spectre of the alliance's biggest, most powerful member attacking and dismembering a smaller partner. As the Wall Street Journal put it, possible military action in confronting Europe with the unthinkable, its major ally for more than 70 years has turned into its most urgent threats. And while Trump allies like to paint this as bluster or the president talking seriously, not literally, it's undeniable that his words caused real panic in Greenland, where polling shows the vast majority of the island's 56,000 inhabitants do not want to become Americans. Prior to Trump's Davos speech, Premier Jens Frederick Nielsen posted to his Facebook account, "I know that this situation affects us all emotionally. If the uncertainty feels overwhelming, I would like to remind everyone of Tusanga, a mental health helpline where you can both chat and speak with someone. No one should face worries alone in this serious situation for our country." And that is a point that we want to emphasize. Even if you believe Trump was just negotiating, it is an undeniable fact that his threats caused huge anxiety and emotional suffering among Greenlanders who were forced to spend over a week living under the threat of a military invasion. Nor is nuke the only capital worry right now. Both before and during his speech, Trump and his advisors hinted that the US would cut off Kyiv if Europe surrendered Greenland.
So that's not really a good play, right? Like, if you don't give me the thing I want, then I'm going to stop supporting this other thing that we've been supporting, right?
Yeah.
That just feels bad.
And also he threatened anyone who stood in his way with massive tariffs and so on. It's you can see the downfall of a very 70-year plus alliance already in the works. Like, he's going to do in 4 years that it took 70 years to build. He's going to destroy in less than 4 years. I
really see it stabilizing, honestly. I really do see it stabilizing. I think it has to. It has to. It has to stabilize.
In what way?
Well, there isn't. Well, if the United States wants to keep the treaties and the trade deals and all the things that make it so that we can have those things from those other places, imports, then we're going to have to, somewhere down the line, either stabilize it or become completely isolationist. And I don't think that the American constituency is going to appreciate being separated like that, right? So he's going to have to play to that eventually.
But you think, down to these actions, you think that ship has already sailed? You think? No,
I think it can get reined in. I think it can get reined in for sure.
Or do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better?
I think it'll get a little worse before it gets better, before it starts to stabilize. I think right now he has some directions and drives, and he's trying to get to those things before that last 2 years of his presidency, which is functionally the lame duck portion of it, right?
So he's trying to rush to get all this stuff done before the midterms?
Probably. If he can get it stabilized before the midterms hit, 2026 midterms, then I think it would be ideal for him and for them to get more GOP seats in the House as well as the Senate. So
I don't think Trump or most Americans realize that $2.6 trillion worth of Treasury debt is actually owned by European pension funds, which makes up about 30% of your national debt. And there has been a serious meeting all across Europe about dumping national treasury debts on the marketplace. And I think that threat might rein him in. I think it already has reined him in. I think after this meeting, he has kind of cut back on the rhetoric in the last couple of hours as we were recording.
I think Trump might not be holding on to some cards he thinks he has. And when the European Union decides they're finally going to stand up and say, look, bro, like, you need to stop this, man. You need to fix that shit.
I think, but already other European members, including other NATO allies, including Italy, of all, are leading the charge with this one, where they're just talking about just get the US out of NATO, just go on our own. Like, even looking at the leader in Italy, when she turned around and said it might be a serious discussion about shutting down US bases all across Europe.
Yep.
I think that's where these relationships are at that point, at this point at the moment.
Makes sense. All right, let's get back to it, bud.
Greenland, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent issuing the following not-so-subtle threat, quote, "The European leaders will come around on Greenland. What would happen in Ukraine if the US pulled its support out? The whole thing would collapse." End quote. And then there's the anxiety being felt in Reykjavik. While Trump's mentions of acquiring Iceland at Davos appeared to be simple confusion, they came off the back of the president's nominee for ambassador to Reykjavik, Billy Long, joking that Iceland would become the 52nd state and he would act as its governor. A joke.
I thought Alberta was supposed to be the 52nd state. What? Come on.
Yeah, I think I think the sad thing is, I think this guy has dreams of empire, as they would say, but the world doesn't operate like that anymore.
For some reason, you and I both are getting all this AI slot videos about how some of the provinces in the middle of Canada are going to be becoming United States states, right?
Yeah.
And it just, the videos are all pretty awkward and pretty bad, and it doesn't seem like it's got a lot of evidentiary value. And the Canadian federal government's like, stop, just stop. Right? Quebec keeps trying this, and we're like, no, like, we're not going to let Alberta go. It's not going to, Manitoba's not going. Like, come on, right?
Yeah. But I think what was a very good speech actually at this particular meeting was Carney from Canada, when he turned around and he said it straight out that the rules of the game have changed.
Oh, for sure. Once you nab
That it
a
is-
president of another country,
Yeah.
you've changed the face of it. But a lot of it was that what was her name? Machado, the one who was the opposition leader that actually won that election, when Maduro was like, "Yeah, no, you're not taking the seat. Like, there's not going to be a transfer of power." Right. So, as opposed to his vice president, it should have been the opposition leader if the United States was going to support someone. Hey, she won the election, give it to Machado. Like, that's what it should have been. But what did Trump say? Like, oh, well, we can work with her, and then she immediately curtailed all of her wild business as soon as she was sworn in. She's like, we're going to stand and blah, blah, blah. And eventually, hours later, she's like, I think I got ahead of myself there. I am so sorry about my nasty mouth. We're gonna step that. We're gonna reel that in a little, and we're gonna see what the U.S.
I think the saddest moment when it came to the opposition leader, when she felt she had the need to give him her Nobel Peace Prize to him, just to kind of massage the ego, as they say. Have we gone to the stage where we have to massage the ego of a world leader to get things done, the right things done? It's as Carney said, the rules of the game have definitely changed around the world. I think the sooner other world leaders realize that, better, because appeasement will never work. Yeah, appeasement will never work with this type of guy. We've all seen through history, especially in Europe, that appeasement doesn't work. You have to kind of meet strength with strength.
I still think there's going to be a stabilization. There's going to have to be. So.
But while it was Greenland, Ukraine, and Iceland that felt the most immediate pressure, the last week was also rough for other US allies. After 8 European nations, including non-EU Norway and Britain, sent a small contingent of troops to Greenland, Trump threatened to hit them with escalating tariffs. On social media, he published private messages sent by France's Emmanuel Macron. The Prime Minister of Norway, Jonas Gahr Støre, meanwhile received the following threat, quote, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, caps, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace."
Yeah, that was a little bullish. That was a little excessive. That was extra, right?
Yeah, well, he said other things about Norway as well. Outside of this, on Truth Social, and I think he doesn't quite well. He thinks acting this way is good. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, this is just him flexing his muscles and a bit of dark humor or whatever else.
Right.
This
but
is
when
not
you're
the way you're
rattling like this, what happens is that people are eventually going to have to say, look, either do the thing or stop threatening the thing. Like, you don't get to have it both ways. You know what I'm saying?
Basically, piss or get off the pot, as they would say long ago.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, either do the thing, like, we're just going to stop paying attention to it, right? Because eventually you either have to just, put your hand up and say, no, thanks, or like, do it. If you're going to do it, do it. Stop threatening it. Just do the thing. Like, we're tired of waiting. Stop it. You don't get to treat us like that,
And I think other European leaders have kind of come to the realization themselves that trying to work with him is a very difficult way. Even when he's leaked their conversations with France and so on, even when he's leaked their private conversations, you can see them trying to reach out to him.
Right. Well, feels like a breaking of trust. If you're like, hey, bud, like, we're trying to have this conversation, and then you keep putting our stuff out there, right? Like, don't put me in the front street. Don't do that to me. So.
Yeah, even Macron actually took the mick out of him a good bit, actually, in his speech. And a lot of the world leaders, even as they were going up there making their speeches, every single one of them, bar one or two, but vast majority of them, especially the Italians and everyone else, are saying to other leaders, it's time for us to come together better. Yeah, right. For us all to start working together better. We have to stop having this over-reliance on one country.
Makes sense.
We should have done this years ago.
Yeah, for your own safety and well-being, it might be the way to go. So, all right, here we go.
As endless outlets have noted, awarding the Nobel Peace Prize is not within the purview of the Norwegian government. However, it's not the specifics that matter. What matters is that this behavior has crystallized what many in NATO have been trying to ignore. US foreign policy is no longer dictated by treaties and international agreements. It's no longer dictated by Congress. It's no longer even dictated by what's good for America, since the US already had unlimited military access to Greenland, with the ability to build as many bases and station as many troops as they wished. Rather,
Yeah, we talked about that before. He already had the capacity to do so. So
yeah, he already had open access. That's what no one can understand what his obsession is.
right,
He's saying it's for American national security.
right, but the cost of opening a large base in Greenland would be excessively expensive. It would be pricey, super pricey.
They already had a large military base that they shut down up there.
That was bad.
And that's the problem. Is he's saying it's for national security reasons. And the sad thing is, everyone's turning around and said, "But you can build what you want up there. Where's the issue?"
The issue has to do with a lot of the Arctic ice breaking up, and there being trade routes are going to be opened up along that space. So he's feeling like bad guy boats can get through there, and without appropriate basing up there, it would be difficult for him to defend those waters and to defend those trade routes, right? So, but, I understand.
It doesn't make like none of this makes logical sense to anyone from outside looking in. Like, you already have access, build a base. Oh no, we need the island. Why? No, he can't seem to have a logical answer for it.
The logical answer is, I suppose, he wants it then.
Yes, pretty much.
And you can't just say, "I want a thing." You have to justify it, right?
Yeah,
because if you just say, "I want a thing," then it's the
the same way as up a couple of months ago, he was on about taking over Canada at one stage. It so much so that the Canadians felt the need to activate their military along the border with the United States. Like, people don't quite understand that these words have lasting consequences.
They do,
across the globe.
Right. Right. If you or I say a small thing, it's if it's a little wild, it's not bad. But for a leader of the most powerful nation in the world, it's a bit of a problem. So, all right, let's get back to it.
US policy today is entirely dictated by the moods and whims of a single man, a man known for changing his mind in an instant. And that makes relations with America impossible. Not in the sense that all trade and cooperation will cease between the US and Europe tomorrow, but in the sense that no country on Earth can now plan for the future on the basis of an alliance with Washington.
Right. It's a trust issue. It's a breaking of trust issue.
Yeah. And trust was damaged, said, quite a bit during his first term. And everyone was kind of going, all right, that's over with now. He's gone. Then Biden came along, and Biden was trying to repair damage across the globe, but didn't quite work out either.
Right. His domestic policies were horrible, though. As good as any of his foreign policies might have been, Biden's domestic policies were tragic. Right.
There were not good domestic policies. I think what he was trying to do, Biden was trying to keep everyone happy all at once, which is impossible, by the way.
Yeah, suicidal empathy is not going to win you the prize.
No, it's not. Of course not. It's not going to work. And now that Trump is there and he's trying to speed run a lot of his stuff because he has a limited time in office, it's like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah,
he's trying to cobble together something that took decades to build in the first place.
Right.
He's trying to rush get everything done all at once.
Right. You really think it's because of the midterms? It just feels like if we can get stabilized before the midterms, he should be good.
I think he realizes what's going to happen in the midterms. I can even make a bet on it. That now that Americans are going down to their local shop and everything's 20-30% higher in price.
Right.
The fact that their health premiums now are gone up. Everything he's promised to bring down has gone up. I think people, no matter how diehard they are, can realize that there's cracks in this policy.
Well, right, because we vote with our pocketbooks and our professions, for sure, right?
Yeah. And the midterms, I think, are going to be not go the way I think he's going.
I think the GOP is going to lose seats in the Senate and the House.
I think it's going to be a very close run thing.
Got it.
And if I was a betting man right now, I could see them actually losing seats.
Makes sense.
The way it stands.
All right.
Unless Trump suddenly pulled off some sort of miracle in the meantime.
Well, maybe he's trying to do the Hail Mary. We'll find out. Let's see what Front's got to say.
One knows whether Trump will respond to a Russian attack on, say, Lithuania with force or with a shrug, then the deterrence value of NATO evaporates. As the Wall Street Journal has noted, quote, a sense is spreading in Europe that the historically unique friendship known as the West will never be the same again. The big question now is, what the hell's going to replace it? Make the great game great again. While many European leaders were humiliated by Trump's actions over the last few days, perhaps none were embarrassed quite like Keir Starmer. The British PM had cultivated a reputation as one of the president's greatest arse-lickers, not quite following Mark Rutte's lead of calling Trump daddy, but going to great lengths to flatter the president with state visits and a fawning attitude more obsequious than the one he uses with Britain's actual king.
Obsequious? Is that what he said?
Yeah, but I just, it's kind of, yeah, I can't believe your man called him daddy. Wow.
Not my man. I don't even call the man daddy, and he's my president. I call him Mr. Trump, President Trump.
Yeah. It's just embarrassing, really.
At first, this seemed to have paid off. While the UK was hit with 10% tariffs last year, they were lower than the 15% levied on the EU, and Starmer won backing from Trump for one of his most controversial policies, the handing over of the Chagos Islands to the nation of Mauritius. An island chain in the Indian Ocean, the Chagos Islands are one of those quirky remnants of Britain's bygone empire, a reminder of when Britannia still ruled the waves. More importantly, the archipelago is home to Diego Garcia, an island that houses one of America's key air bases. Jointly run with the UK, the base allows America to project power across swaths of Africa and the Middle East. For reasons too complicated to get into today, Britain agreed to surrender sovereignty over the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, a nation best described as China curious. Although the Diego Garcia airbase would be leased to Britain for the next 99 years, most analysts, including this very channel, thought the deal was the height of strategic stupidity. But not Donald Trump. Just 9 months ago, the president told Starmer that he was, quote, inclined to go with your country over the deal, and that he had, quote, a feeling it's going to work out very well. And then came the Greenland Crisis. In addition to threatening Britain with an additional 10% of tariffs, Trump declared that the Chagos Islands deal was an act of, quote, great stupidity. The important point isn't whether Trump's correct, it's that he changed his mind on something so vitally important to both US and UK security simply because Starmer offered a weak rebuke over his threats to annex Greenland.
So that Chagos Islands thing was not a great deal at all. And when you hand over the sovereignty... Yeah.
9 months ago, Trump thought it was great.
Right. But the problem is handing over sovereignty to what is functionally the enemy of our country, that China is functionally our big bad guy right now.
Yeah, but Mauritius kind of is friendly to every major superpower out there because they're a small little nation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so, but they have agreed to at least lease the base out. If you know what I mean?
Right, for the 99 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's
because that wasn't a problem with Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, but you have to, but it's a way different. Really, Hong Kong was agreed to be handed over to China. But you have to, what he's saying there is, strategically it was a stupid thing to do, but they had an agreement already in place to hand it over. There was, as he said, there's a bigger issue there. But
it's a trust issue. We're talking about breaking trust,
The important point isn't whether Trump's correct, it's that he changed his mind on something so vitally important to both US and UK security simply because Starmer offered a weak rebuke over his threats to annex Greenland. In a world in which Starmer keeps quiet over Greenland, Trump probably continues to praise his Chagos Islands deal. Nor does the president threaten to hike tariffs on the UK. And that is key, because at the end of the day, trade deals and military treaties are just pieces of paper. They get their power because the world believes that both parties will abide by them. Trump's recent behavior calls all of that into question, not just...
Right, so he starts to look like a bad faith actor, right?
Yeah.
And
across the world, that's the way it feels across the world at the moment. not just a lot of people in Europe, especially the more right-leaning politicians in Europe, I think in Italy now and a few more countries, even now, they agree with his immigration policies, but it's his foreign policy is where everyone's having a problem with.
Right. They're looking at that like we have somebody who's threatening us and then giving us tariffs and then saying we'll give you more tariffs if you don't this and yeah.
It's not just the threats. No country likes being talked down to.
Oh no. That's
And he stood on the world stage over there, and he pretty much insulted nearly every single major world leader there. That's not the way you make a deal.
Yeah, you don't disparage people and then expect them to come back at you with good deals, right?
And of course they can't. They're like, if these world leaders back down now, how can they face their own people?
Yeah, their own constituencies will have issues.
Yeah.
So, all right, here we go.
Trade deals, but everything. And that includes NATO's collective security clause known as Article 5. Here's Shashank Joshi again, quoting, "Security guarantees are hard to turn into simple transactions. They involve an irreducible amount of trust. Trump cannot say, hand me Greenland and I really will defend the rest of NATO. He can say, if you don't hand it over, I will not be able to abide by Article 5. But that relies on Europeans believing that if they do hand it over, he will abide by Article 5. That was decreasingly credible anyway. What little trust there was has been whittled down further with military threats, extortion, and tariffs. But Anschluss, at gunpoint, if it came to that, would decrease it even more. European dependence on American security matters only to the extent that this security is seen to exist." End quote. Or in the words of Bulgarian political scientist Ivan Krastev, quote, "If American commitment to European allies is not real, then no treaty is going to defend you."
Yeah, that's on its face. That's what that means, right? Prima facie, that's
Yep.
what that means. So, okay.
I know pretty much that's what he said to the rest of the world. Do this or else.
Right, and then Article 5 comes into contention, right?
But the funny thing is, Article 5 was only ever triggered once in the history of NATO. And that was in defense of the United States for September 11th. That's the only time Article 5 was ever triggered by NATO. Was actually in defense. And that's what annoys all the European leaders, is when they brought that up, he just laughed it off.
Okay.
That's what a lot of people in Europe are saying is the US is not going to defend Europe in any shape, form, or fashion going forward. Everyone has that sense. He's actually pretty much said that in a lot of ways.
I get what he said there, but I'm pretty sure that Pete Hegseth would be like, "Hey, dude, like, check it out. Like, we have a treaty, and we better do the thing," you know. And
yeah, but as they said, their treaties are only pieces of paper. They're only enforceable if both sides are going to enforce it.
Right. If they're going to do the thing they say they do when whatever condition begins to exist. I get it.
Exactly.
All right, here we go.
Out of the realms of political speak and game theory by threatening a NATO ally and then calling into question America's commitment to the alliance in his Davos speech, Trump has weakened the deterrent effect of Article 5. The NATO alliance only works if Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping are terrified that a single bullet fired in Estonia or Alaska will bring 3 nuclear-armed powers, plus the massive conventional armies of the US, Poland, and Turkey, and enormous economic sanctions crashing down on them. The moment that is called into question, the credibility of the threat evaporates. Article 5 becomes as useful as the sheet of paper Neville Chamberlain infamously waved in 1938, declaring it committed Britain and Germany to peace in our time. Just because Trump has now ruled out the use of force to seize Greenland does not mean that this basic fact has changed. Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, Pyongyang, and more are now deeply aware that America's commitment to Europe, not to mention Canada and Turkey, is entirely dependent on Trump's mood when he wakes up that day. The saddest part, Canada and Europe, not to mention America's other allies, are now aware of that too. One of the reasons the NATO alliance became the bedrock of the West was because everyone trusted it. A favorite gripe on the American right these days is about NATO freeloaders. And look, we get you. Search our archive and you will find plenty of videos where we kick Germany, Belgium, Spain, Canada, and others for not spending their fair share on defense. The refusal of multiple nations to hit the 2% target was shameful, and we have been saying it for years. But what gets left out of the discourse was how much the United States gained from this trust. Europeans served with honor in Afghanistan and Iraq, with nations like Denmark suffering an equivalent number of casualties per capita as the USA. European nations bought American-made weapons and American goods and clamped down on Chinese investment when Washington demanded it. American bases like Ramstein in Germany allow the US to project its power across swaths of the world. In 2023, War on the Rocks marveled over the fact that Europe had willingly turned itself into a vassal of America. The world's second largest economy, yes, bigger in nominal GDP terms than China, reduced willingly to Uncle Sam's lapdog.
So because of the bases we have in Europe, we can be an expeditionary force anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with those physical structures and infrastructure in place for us to project that power, right? So that is a good thing. And yes, it did a lot of good things. I'm hoping that that relationship can maintain and we can rebuild and regain the trust, because that is what makes the threat of the United States against those bad actors more effective, right?
Yeah. You need the infrastructure, you need the bases, you need boots on the ground, as I say. And without that infrastructure or boots on the ground, America is weaker for it.
Right. The power projection becomes weak and the expeditionary processes cannot be enacted.
When you see Republican senators and other politicians over there saying, well, we'll survive if they shut down our bases. And that kind of limited thinking is what's ruling the roost over there. As you said, they don't quite realize that those bases, yes, cost money to maintain, but they also help America project power across the globe. And without those bases, that power is really reduced.
Right. Absolutely. All right, here we go.
Before getting into current affairs, we actually used to do history content on this channel, so believe us when we say that the second biggest beast in the jungle happily bowing to the top dog without a fight is not normal. America might have been overpaying for Europe's security, but the trade-off was a potential rival neutered, an economic giant reduced to an obedient poodle. Well, that all died in the dumpster fire of last week. Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever said the quiet part out loud when he noted, "Living as a happy vassal is one thing, existing as a miserable slave is another." And while we've previously given de Wever a kicking over his stance on Ukraine, his comments certainly struck a nerve on this side of the pond, because the Greenland crisis is bigger than NATO. If the US can change its mind on fundamental matters of security according to the whims of a single man, that is not something that just affects Europe. Military planners in Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, Taiwan, and even Israel will now be preparing contingencies to deal with an erratic ally. And that leads us neatly to our biggest question. If the Greenland crisis is blowing up the old world order, what comes next? Days of future disaster. So imagine for a moment that it's December the 31st, 2019, and you are Xi Jinping, sat there in Beijing in your Winnie the Pooh pajamas, we're sure, trying to write a wish list for the coming decade. Top of your list would probably be something like, the rest of the world comes to see America as a threat and instead turns to lovely, cuddly China. Well, whatever monkey's paw Xi got a hold of, his wishes seem to be coming true. Writing in Politico, the director and co-founder of the European Council on Foreign Relations noted that, quote, "The single biggest long-term impact of Trump's first year in office is how often he has driven people away from the US and closer to China."
So does that necessarily mean closer to China, or is it going to be that the European Union gets in lockstep with each other and they do what they do without the assistance of a China or a United States? They become self-sufficient and self-reliant.
My honest opinion is, one, Europe is rebuilding at a really, really mind-blowing rate. Its military.
Right, I get that, but they still deindustrialized in both France and Germany to such severe detriment that they're going to have to rebuild all that infrastructure and then find a way to finance it as well.
Yes, and they're already put out feelers to China, India, South Korea, and other nations to help them rebuild their military infrastructure. I think what Trump doesn't realize, and I think a lot of Americans don't realize, is they're not the only players on the block. And that's going to be their downfall. I think over 70 odd years, over 70
Right.
years.
If they don't stabilize it, that's going to be the problem for sure. I
They
can see
are,
that.
but the Europeans are stabilizing it. And thanks, I think this is going to be a devil of their own making. The fact that over 500 million Europeans are suddenly going to move towards the likes of China and so on as their closest military ally is going to be a mind melting for most Americans to swallow.
Right. Makes sense. All right. Here we go.
End quote. Polling shows that much of the global south, including Brazil, South Africa, and even NATO member Turkey, boasts majorities of people who see Beijing as a better ally than Washington. Outside the global south, the news is not much rosier. One poll on January 16th indicated an overwhelming number of Canadians see America as negatively as they see China. Meanwhile, the percentage of Brits who think America is a good ally has collapsed. Now, this isn't to say that NATO's other members are about to embrace Beijing. While Canada's Mark Carney recently met Xi Jinping and announced some deals, China frankly doesn't want to become Ottawa or Brussels' new best buddy, nor do Europe or Canada trust Beijing enough to swap one erratic superpower for another. Instead, what we're likely to see is a general drift of non-aligned nations towards China, all while the rest of NATO searches for a way to stay relevant in a hostile world. In his speech at Davos, Mark Carney already outlined one potential route forward, an alliance of middle powers, not dissimilar to some of the non-aligned blocs that sprung up during the Cold War, quoting, "When we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. We accept what's offered. We compete with each other to be the most accommodating. This is not sovereignty. It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination. In a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice: compete with each other for favor or combine to create a third path with impact." End quote. Now, how
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The middle powers are going to have to put something together to stay relevant and to defend their sovereignty. Right.
And that's what Canada and the European Union are came together, a historical defense pact. I don't think Trump and most Americans realize that if the European Union, Canada, New Zealand, and all the rest do come together, well, it does look like they're well on the way of coming together in a common defense pact, is there a need for NATO anymore?
I
Like,
don't know.
when you see other European leaders turn around and saying, "Do you know what? Why don't we just close down our bases?" I don't think Trump quite understands that the damage he's done in the last few months is going to have massive knock-on effects.
Right. It's going to have some
Decades.
negative consequences for sure.
And yeah, it's going to be a massive knock-on effect.
See what Moore's got to say.
How realistic this is remains to be seen. Convincing middle powers to stand together and negotiate as one is a tall order, although there's nothing quite like threats to sharpen the might. Where Europe is concerned, the choice is starker. Get tougher or get dismembered. An earlier draft of America's 2025 national security strategy that was leaked to the press and initially reported via Defense One suggested that the US should work towards pulling countries like Poland, Italy, and Hungary out of the EU. While that language was missing from the final version, it suggests that elements of the current administration would like nothing more than to break Europe apart. Because while a united Europe is a cowardly lion, unaware of its own strength, a Europe reduced to 27 small independent states is barely even a gathering of munchkins. In a gloomy post on X, former Foreign Minister of Lithuania, Gabrielas Landsbergis, wrote of Europe, "We know we are stuck. Our friends and enemies know too. Therefore, nobody should expect the pressure on Europe to be reduced until we realize that respect is fought for, not begged for."
Yeah. Stand on your own 2 feet and defend what's
Yeah.
yours, and then do it as a collective as opposed to small individual states, for sure.
I think that's what the European Union has definitely realized now at this stage is we are better together than separated. I think even the likes of Italy and Poland and even Hungary have realized in the last few weeks, they've definitely changed their language, is we have to all work together in Europe to defend ourselves. We can never be this reliant on another nation ever again.
Yep.
Leave ourselves so weakened that we have to cow down to anyone.
Right. Here we go.
While recent experience would suggest that Europe fighting for respect would involve several committee meetings and a sternly worded letter, that may not remain the case for much longer. As French foreign affairs expert Jeremy Guillon told the Wall Street Journal, quoting, Europeans also have their pride and don't like to see their countries being pushed around. People are starting to feel that the sense of humiliation and vassalization is at a point that is unacceptable. End quote. So far, this has not trickled up to Europe's leadership, but polling, just on lived experience as Europeans, suggests that more and more of the public want to take a stand to reclaim our pride and maybe even rediscover hard power. Is such a thing possible? Maybe not. Our leaders have raised spinelessness to an art form, but the administration should remember that there is no better way to compel someone to action than making them feel disrespected. It was the perceived sneering of America's liberals, after all, that drove Trump's entire movement. Or maybe the sneering of MAGA will be enough to finally wake Europe up. As for the United States, if it continues down this erratic path, it's hard to see it ending anywhere good. Supporters of Trump's imperialism like to repost that Henry Kissinger quote on social media. America has no permanent friends or enemies, only interests. But what they seem to forget is that this is a two-way street. If you keep pushing your friends around, keep humiliating them, and sneering at their weaknesses, don't be surprised if they decide to stop being your friends. As Mark Carney put it to Davos, hegemons cannot continually monetize their relationships. Allies will diversify to hedge against uncertainty. They'll buy insurance, increase options in order to rebuild sovereignty that was once grounded in rules, but will be increasingly anchored in the ability to withstand pressure. End quote. The Greenland Crisis has ended for now, but the damage it has done to NATO, to Europe, and to America may never be undone. And a weaker transatlantic alliance in an era of the rising China threatens to make the future smaller, meaner, and poorer for us all. Thank you for watching.
Right. Thank you, Simon Whistler. Well done. Well done.
Yeah,
Well done.
absolutely. Well, very well put together. And as I was saying there, people might think that I was being a bit hard on Trump and his administration. As I've always said, I agree with some of Trump's policies, but not all as a European. Now, Alex is my co-host, and as you can know, he's very much in the Trump camp in a lot of ways. But I think we can both agree that the way this administration is acting with its allies is not good. Wouldn't you agree?
I think that when you destabilize in the way that he's destabilizing, it can be an issue. But like I said, I think he's going to pull it back. I think he's going to stabilize it. I think things will get better. Like you said, it's probably going to get a little bit more difficult before it gets better. But if the United States, like Kissinger said, acts in its interests are to ensure that we back up Article 5 if anything like that were to occur. Right? I don't want it to happen and we have to go do that. But if something like that were to happen and we did jump up and do the thing we were supposed to do for Article 5 and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that would speak volumes, right? But we also need Europe as force projection for sending forces on expeditionary to go to other places. So we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue to deteriorate the trust that we have developed over the last 70 years.
Do you think that trust can be rebuilt?
Yes, for sure.
Under this president?
Yes.
Or do you think it would be the next president?
No, it's going to have to be Trump. If Trump breaks it, he's going to have to buy it and he's going to have to fix it. And I think he has the capacity. So there might be a lot of things we're unaware of, but we don't have, everybody's playbook. It just from the outside looking in, it looks like destabilization and a breaking of trust. But there might be something we're completely unaware of. Again, we don't play in those levels, so we don't know all the things.
But as I watched Warfronts when he was alluding to the national security document that was released, and it showed their policy going forward when it came to Europe. And I think it was eye-opening for a lot of European leaders.
Right, but the problem is the ones that he wants to take
when the US foreign policy is to rip Europe apart and break Europe, break the EU pact.
Right. So the problem, right. No, I get where you're going. The problem is the EU has some very serious bad faith actors, and they are working counter to the rest of what the EU proposition is in general. Right. So we talked about it in other videos where there are factions within the EU that will cause distress merely for the reason just to cause distress, right? Turkey being one of them, and some of the Eastern European countries that are in there do that, right? And because it takes a vote for all of them to agree to a thing, you have to appease some of them by giving them things you should not be giving them, right?
Yeah,
So,
but that goes with any union of nations or
for
states
sure.
or so on. You
I
have
get
to
it.
play, you know, you have to sometimes play ball. That's just the nature of any agreements.
Right.
But I
But
think
if the United States
even the
position
most,
is we need to get rid of the really bad faith actors because we're having a hard time meeting at their level, and there are things that we don't like about them so
no,
much that we just it's very difficult for us to work in that space.
no, I think the problem is the United States realizes Europe combined is over 500 million people,
Right.
but Europe separated into 27 separate little tiny countries will be easier to deal with because you can push around a couple of smaller nations very quickly instead of trying to push around an entire block of nations.
Got it. So it's a threat
And,
management thing. Okay.
and that's what no, that's what the national security
Oh no,
his
yeah,
own
no.
document.
I see it,
And
but
see that
that wasn't what actually got published. So
it
regardless,
wasn't
it's
what got
not part of the
published in the
plan.
end. Obviously, somebody told him to walk it back a bit because you can't say that. You can't say the quiet
Right, I
part out
understand
loud.
that, but when you have a conference, you talk about things that are uncomfortable, right?
Yes,
You do that. So a thing is uncomfortable, like, look, we don't particularly like this. Well, yeah, you're gonna have to eat that one because you got to work with it, you know. So,
I think the only way Trump can ever rebuild trust going forward is if he, which I don't think he's capable of, kind of sucking up and saying, "Look, I didn't quite mean what I said." I don't think he has that. I don't think he would do that. But it's going to take a lot of bridge building to rebuild what is after being broken. I
no,
think.
I think it can be done. So, all right, for Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. We're the A&P gents. Like the subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things, and help us beat the algorithm. We are out.